What's going on, guys? Welcome to LogiCast, the Logical Gamers podcast. I'm Mr. Esoteric, along with Blanka Kong and Hado Wolf. Unfortunately, Gun and Ears couldn't be with us at this time, so yeah, he has prior engagements at this moment. With that being said, we are here currently to discuss big feat within the Nintendo company, and that's the Nintendo Switch beating the PS3 and Xbox in sales. Um, so yeah, we read this article on Niche Gamer is by Ryan Pearson, and just going to summarize what the article was stating. So, in regards to the Nintendo Switch beating Xbox and PS3, not collectively, separately. Just want to clarify that. The Nintendo Switch had sales 89.04 million units sold. All right. Compared to their competitors, the Xbox 360 had 85.8 million units sold, and the PS3 had 84.41 million units sold. So that's roughly about 4 to 5 million difference between the two competitors. Okay. Just wanted to also address that they stated that Mario Kart sold 37 million approximately, and Animal Crossing New Horizons sold 33.89 million. All right. The article also stated that the lifetime sales beat both the Nintendo 3DS and the Game Boy Advance. I'm assuming that is just the Nintendo 3DS, the base one. The other
Yeah.
ones have their counterparts, XL and Lite, and so on. So yeah, okay. And I also would like to address that they were able to beat them during a semiconductor shortage. For those of you who don't know or watch cartoons, semiconductor is basically a component that allows electricity to flow through or kind of stop the electricity within certain gadgets and so on. It's very essential for many things that are being used. So yeah, just wanted to point that out. All right. So that was pretty much the premise of the article. Now, before I give you guys the floor, I just wanted to kind of speak on what I think attributed to the Nintendo Switch success. And one of the things I would say is notoriety. I think because the Switch has been well known for quite some time, uh, even during our time as kids, Nintendo has always been around. So there's some familiarity there for gamers who've played back then, have a sense of nostalgia, and so on. Another factor too is that I would like to address is that cost. The Nintendo is significantly cheaper. This as opposed to the counterparts, the Xbox 360 and the PS3. Simply because I think at the time when I purchased the PS3, and this is the fat unit, not the slims, it was around $600, and that was for the 60 gigabyte hard drive one. Um, and the Xbox 360 was around, if I'm not mistaken, $499. So it was about $100 to $200 difference. So that's one of the factors as well. Um, Also, a big factor which the article also mentioned, and I agree with considerably, is the timing. We're in a pandemic, and one of the factors, one of the things that generated with the along with the pandemic were people who were out of work and stimulus checks. So that allowed a lot of people to buy Nintendo Switch units. Um, and yeah, another thing I would like to address too. I know I keep saying I would like to address. But another thing I would say is the innovation as well. Like Nintendo being the type of company that has created the first one of the first systems to work on 64 bits. They also created a Rumble feature that came with Star Fox 64 at the time. So that kind of enhanced interactive gaming. So all the controllers that you guys have now that are rumbling and tumbling, thank Nintendo for that. And they're also great at reinventing the wheel. Um, Even though it's not needed, you can play a game that has been created from like 10 years ago and they will recreate it and it'll have a whole different experience. So those were some of the things that I feel kind of factored into the Nintendo Switch's success. So what are you guys' thoughts on this article and how you feel?
Wolf, do you want to go first?
Nope, you could go first, Blanka.
Sure.
Yep.
All right. So I pulled a lot of stats because I asked myself a lot of questions as to why the Switch is where it is and can it get to the top, right? So the first question I asked myself, is it surprising that the Nintendo Switch outpaced the PS3 and 360? Short answer is no, it's not surprising. To piggyback off what you were saying, Esoteric, Nintendo has the branding, they've got the IPs, they've got the fan base, they've got the history, they've got the attractive price points, they have the innovation, right? It's the first like hybrid, maybe not the first technically, but it's the first mainstream hybrid home console slash portable console, right?
Yes.
Um uh 2017 February, right before the Switch's launch, I had the privilege of attending a Switch event, and at that point in time it wasn't out yet, so it was like a preview event, and I remember being like amazed at like how seamless it was to change from portable to home console play. I was like, what the hell? It was like magic, right? Like pop, pop, done, easy, just like that. And like the drop in quality was marginal between portable play and um home on screen play. I was floored. I was like, this is incredible, right? So I knew that thing was going to be a juggernaut console as long as they produced the software. And Legend of Zelda was the perfect like launch title, I think, to showcase what the Switch can do.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
So it's no surprise. The next question I asked myself was, can the Switch go even further? Yes, of course, right? It's only 4 years old. Um, they're still developing games hard for it. I mean, people are buying multiple Switches, and this I have 3 Nintendo Switches. I have one in my living room. I have my Monster Hunter one in the room in my bedroom, and then I have a Switch Lite that I bought because it was there. I had the money. I said, "Fuck it, I'll buy a Switch Lite. I'll try it," and I still have it. I don't use it, but I have it as a backup. So, and I know a lot of people who do that. They because it's so affordable and accessible. Like if you have roommates or you live with your family or you have kids or whatever, like I've seen families with everybody has their own Nintendo Switch. Like it's insane. So I think that trend is only going to follow through. It's only going to grow. And then the last question I asked myself was, what are the systems that the Switch can't beat? And then that prompted me to look up all the consoles that have existed and the top consoles. So I'm going to go through the top 10 consoles of all time according to the research I've found. Some of these numbers may be a little off. If I'm off, then let me know. But this is what I found from my light research. So in first place is the PlayStation 2 at 155 million. PS2 came out in
That's no
2000.
surprise.
Yeah, that's it's crazy. So the PS2 came out in the year 2000 in March and ceased production in 2013. So it had a 13-year run, which is incredible, right? Second place is the DS family at 154 million. So that is DS, DS Lite, DSi, 3DS, like the whole DS family
Oh,
as a
okay.
collective.
3DS
As
included.
Yeah, the whole DS
Okay.
family.
Okay.
Right. Again, that's no surprise.
Yeah.
Like,
You said like I thought you had something to follow up.
nah, go on. I want you
I,
to finish the.
I would say it's not surprising because at that time, um, when the DS did come out, I believe it was around the time with the PSP, and due to the fact that the PSP had limitations pertaining to their memory cards, a lot of people weren't too thrilled about that. Um, And then also as the gradual upgrade of the DS, they had the PSP, the PS Vita, and the PS Vita. Their titles were kind of somewhat limited, as I recall. So,
That goes back to software and IPs.
mm-hmm.
If you've got the games, people will play your machine, people will buy your machine.
Yep.
So in third place is the Game Boy family. That's Game Boy, Game Boy Pocket, Game Boy Color, etc. Right at 118.69 million. That was from 1988 to 2003 is when they ceased production on Game Boys, which is
Yeah.
crazy. That's a 15-year stretch. DS family was 16 years from 2004 to 2020. 3DS, right? In fourth place is the PS4 at 116.4 million. That's from 2013 to present, right? They're still producing PS4s, even though the PS5 is out. In fifth place is the PlayStation 1 at 102.49 million. That came out in 1994 and ended in 2006. So the same year the PS3 came out, the PS1 was now stopping production, which is crazy to think about. 12-year run for them.
Yeah.
In sixth place is the Wii at 101.63 million. That was from 2006 to 2013. That's a 9-year run, followed by the Switch, at 89 million, 89.04 million, 2017 to present, which is 4 years. So I asked myself one last question, and I'll turn it over to Wolf. So I said, okay, well, Switch has been out for 4 years. How does that compare to the PS2 in the 4-year mark? So I did some digging, and as of August 2021, right? 89 million units sold. Okay. PS4 or PS2 by December 2004, the PS4 or the PS2, I keep getting my PSs mixed up, sold 81.39 million. So they're really
Close.
so the
They're
Switch
relatively
blew out.
close.
No, the Switch blew it out. I mean, by 8 million, right? I mean, it's
Yeah.
close, but like the sizable margin, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I go, okay, how many games exist on the PS2 and how many games exist on the Switch at the 4-year mark? So the PS2 has over 4,000 games. If we're talking
Shit.
Japan, Japanese releases, North American releases, US releases,
Wow.
yeah, North American and European releases, over 4,000 games, right?
Jesus.
And that, I mean, there's some questionable ones like Devil May Cry 3 came out 2 times, so that counts as 2 entries. So there's like entries like that, but like that's still a lot of games,
But it came
right?
out on the PS2, so I would consider it as one of its um
It's considered individual launch. So it's like Devil May Cry 3 will appear as two games. If you were to
okay.
compile a list, right?
Okay.
Devil May Cry 3 and then Devil May Cry Special Edition. Same thing
Okay.
with like
Yeah.
Metal Gear 2 and Metal Gear 2 Substance, which was like the same game but with like way more content and an online component.
Right. That does make sense though,
Yeah.
because to be honest, why would I buy Devil May Cry 3 and not buy Devil May
Special
Cry
edition.
3 Special Edition? And from there, Capcom and Sony will obviously see the numbers and say, okay, well, Special Edition is selling more than 3.
Right.
So, yeah, I could see that
So
being 2 separate entries.
but I wanted to point that out so that
Mhm.
people are aware. It's not necessarily, well, I have 3,800 over 3,800 different games, and then I did some more digging. Like somebody had posted like 4,300 games. I was like, what the fuck? A lot of games, right? So it's okay. Well, damn, how many games are on the Switch right now? As of August, right now, 2021,
About a few hundred.
4,052 different games on the Switch.
Really?
What?
That's
Really?
that's digital and physical, right?
Really?
Think about all the mobile
shocked.
games, all the ports, that all counts.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Okay.
wow. So the Switch, as far
Mhm.
as I could tell, is on course to be number one if they can maintain this momentum, right? They have the amount of games, they have the convenience of living in the internet age, right? Where games can be downloaded or bought physically, while the PS2 was kind of relegated to the early 2000s, which was primarily hard copy discs,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
And they have the sales numbers to prove that they probably will reach number one if the Switch lives as long as as the PS2 did, 13 years. It 2030 is when the Switch will die if it follows the PS2's footsteps. I think it'll surpass 155 million by then. I mean, if they continue to innovate and re-release old classics and give indie developers a chance to produce their content on their machine, I think they can do it. So in doing this research, I was like, wow, this is really fascinating and interesting to look at and kind of predict. It's fun to kind of fantasy book the future of like this console. So, but I'll leave it to you, Wolf.
Wow, that's a lot of information. I
No, sorry.
after a lot of those things I didn't even know myself, really. I mean, I'm no surprise in the list that you provided, PlayStation 2 being number one. The variety of games on the PlayStation 2 is phenomenal. But then the DS following up with that, the mobility, accessibility, plus the games on the DS. No surprise it's number two. My thing is with Nintendo, I can understand Nintendo, why Nintendo consistently keeps up with these other companies who's dishing out, how can I put it, bigger or more,
AAA games.
for lack of a better word, complex games. It's because a part of it, I feel like Nintendo just they put a sense of nostalgia and rapport out with the public. And you don't even need to be a gamer to know what Nintendo is. You don't need to be a gamer to know Mario. You don't need to be a gamer to know freaking Pokemon. Like I can go to work right now because nobody else, like, only one other person at my job right now plays video games. And I can go to my job and make a Mario comparison. And everybody on my staff will understand where that's coming from. Now, if I was to make let's say, Crash Bandicoot comparison, I think it'll fly over majority of my staff members' heads. Like, I'm not saying that Crash Bandicoot isn't popular.
That's just a
I'm pretty
comparative
sure,
statement.
right?
Yeah.
Just a
Yeah.
comparative statement. And I think that's where it becomes where people buy it. Like, people come, you used to work in the game, so people will come in and it'll be mothers, fathers, grandmothers, grandfathers.
He's not happy.
But I see that big smile on his face. You'll get parents of all ages, size, nationality, and the one thing they want to know is, I want to buy my kid a game. What console should I buy my kid? It's very easy to push a console like the Nintendo console because the Nintendo console has an easy amount, an easy to use list of games where I can say, okay, a kid can play this. And I don't have to worry about the backlash of adult content or, gore, or the parent coming back with the child being dissatisfied with the game. A lot of times we as gamers, we want complexity, we want maturity in our video games, but then we actually do get it, and it's like, it's like, okay, the game was good, but I'm not going to remember. Like, I don't remember. I played what's the one that's based on the Four Horsemen?
Darksiders.
Oh my God, Darksiders. I played the first one. And to be honest, the major thing that I remember about Darksiders was the voice actor of the main character is one of my favorite voice actors for like anime and video games. That's what I remember. Link doesn't have a voice, but I remember every single Legend of Zelda game that I've played. I can break it down detail to detail, and Link never talks. Period. Even in Breath of the Wild, he doesn't talk. He doesn't have a voice. So it's like, why is it that I don't remember anything about Darksiders other than the voice actor? But it's still a game that I actually sat, played, and completed. But I can remember every little detail that I went through in, say, Breath of the Wild. I just think that Nintendo just knows how to develop what video games should be. Video games. Not an unnecessary, matured content that's put out because young adults want to see 3D titties or have their main character cursing up a storm. You know, like in the end of the day, that's just flavor to the content that we're indulging in, but it's not going to make the content. It's not going to build that content, that gaming experience that we are looking for when we load up a console. So that's why I feel like Nintendo will always, I won't say will always be on top, but they can always compete with their predecessors. I give another comparison, which only the anime nerds is really going to pick up on this. I watched an anime called Initial D, and in the anime,
Yeah.
the main character uses some shitty ass car with hardly any horsepower or torque towards it whatsoever. I mean, the car was designed to do delivery. I believe it was for his uncle's business, but he was drifting and beating everybody who had these souped up cars, who had the high horsepower, the high torque, everything. And they didn't even understand how this guy can consistently beat them in his essentially a garbage can with wheels.
Well, let
You
me
know,
stop you right there. I don't know who this guy is. I've never seen the show, but he's never beat Dom Toretto. So, or what
That's
was that
because
his name?
Dom has family.
Toretto,
to,
Dom Toretto,
Toretto.
Toretto,
Toretto.
Toretto. Yeah.
Toretto,
Yeah,
I mean, come
Toretto.
Toretto.
on, man. Get the
I'm just
character
kidding.
right if you're gonna use them.
It's
Like,
family.
It's about family, first of all.
it's about family, right? So,
I could have known myself. Go ahead.
um, but yeah, so it's like, like the Switch isn't crap or is it in garbage, but it does pale in comparison when it comes to power, capabilities, and I guess what we were looking for as gamers, or what teenage gamers or young adult gamers will be looking for in their video games. The Switch can lack in that, depending on what you're willing to tolerate. Um, but yet it continues to strive. So Nintendo knows what they're doing. Like I said before we even started this podcast, I said because Nintendo makes games,
Mhm.
and that's what our entertainment is coming from. It's games. Like if I play Devil May Cry right now, yes, I will be playing Devil May Cry. I may have fun with the gameplay, but I can play Devil May Cry and get and get it watered to the point where it's like, is it any different from playing Bayonetta? Do you understand what I'm saying? It's like, I mean, yeah, one is a witch, is a female witch with who uses her hair as a weapon, and the other one is a demon brat who uses all sorts of weapons. But in the end of the day, the gameplay is essentially the same. They can get watered down to the point where they start to blend as one game. At least in my point of view. That's just my point of view of it. But when I pick up, say, uh, let's use Metroid. Metroid is a side-scrolling game, but the ambiance, the scenery, the setting that Metroid puts you in, it takes you out of the fact that it brings you into this world where you really want to know what is going on, and like, why is she always getting herself on some shitty planet with evil aliens? But at the same time, you're so immersed in the story and the world that she's placed in, but you never forget that you're playing a video game. Every new area that she enters is more like, this is a new approach. And I feel like, that's the progression of difficulty in video games. It every time you progress in the video game, it presents something new to you. It presents a new problem. It presents a new difficulty. And when you step back and you look at even Mario Galaxy, that's what happens. Every new planet you reach on in Mario Galaxy, it's a new approach. It's a new situation that you have to deal with, and you cannot go about it, more or less, you cannot go about it the way you did on the last planet. Like Bayonetta, I can play and I can press Y, 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 X, 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 square, 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 and I'll get through the game. No problem. Maybe one or two bosses will have a different approach to it, but it's essentially, that's it. That's the gameplay. And then you give me, okay, a very mature sexualized character, blah 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 blah, and then like, come on, I'm past puberty. like I it doesn't appeal to me anymore. But then prior to to Blanka Kong's research, I looked into it and I said, okay, well, we're comparing the Switch, which is essentially a newer console. We're comparing it to the PS3 and the Xbox 360, which had its time. So am I surprised that it outsold the PS3 at this point? No, because the PS3 is no longer in production. So is the Xbox 360. So I went and I looked at the sales of it being compared to, say, the PS5 and the Xbox Series X and S. And Nintendo fell behind the PS5 barely as of July 2021. Maybe like 3,000 or no, like 3 million copies. They fell behind. I believe the PS3 is at 9 million. The PS5 is at 9 million, and then the Switch is at 6 million. But they beat the Series S and X, which I'm not surprised, but they did. So right now, when it comes to the newer gen console, so their new competition, Nintendo is already holding their own. I feel like the PS5 have those sales because it is the newest hot potato on the market. That's why I feel like it's up there.
So
I
just to be
think
clear, you compared year one sales of the Switch to the PS5. That was your
no,
comparison.
I mean the current, what's going on currently, like what our sales are currently now for the consoles.
So you're talking 2021
Yeah,
sales.
2021 sales, right?
So just that
Because
year.
for just this year, right? And the
Okay.
only reason why I did that is just to see like where they are pacing in this race. I just wanted to see like, okay, we're going back, we're doing past consoles, but what are they doing? What is this same console? How is it holding up to its new competitors? Because the Xbox
Sure.
360 and the PS3 is no longer a competitor as a console.
Mhm.
Obviously, the companies are still around. So now the new competitor is, well, how are they gonna compare their console? How are they gonna keep up with a powerful system like a PS5 or a Series X? Like I've seen this when I saw the Series X in my brother's room. I thought I thought he bought a computer and he had the PC on the side, and I was like, oh, okay, so where's the rest of your computer? He was like, that's not a computer, that's the Xbox X. And I'm like, what? like for like what? But then he showed me the things it can do, and it's like to treat the video games as apps where you can switch between games and pick up where you left off at. I thought that was a pretty neat quality of life kind of aspect they added to the console, which the Switch doesn't have. But that's what I'm saying. Is like, does the Switch need it to
I don't
compete?
think so.
I
I don't think so.
I would say no. Like
Mm,
Nintendo's pattern has always been, with the exception of Nintendo 64 and maybe the GameCube, they've always have been lacking in hardware in the hardware department. Like the the Wii never had Bluetooth capabilities. You couldn't put a headset on. Same thing with its successors. And also like their system pertaining to um, their internet interface. Like it's not that great. It's lacking. But what Nintendo excels in is core gameplay and like marketing and reaching out to both casual and hardcore gamers, because the hardcore gaming community, I'm pretty sure, has owned some form of Nintendo. Like I've had the regular Nintendo and I've been growing up playing Nintendo for God knows how long. So I feel like when it comes to innovation, Nintendo has it hands down. Innovation within games. And I would say hardware as well, because again, as I mentioned before, they made the Rumble Pack. They were the first one to kind of traverse through 64-bit territory. Um, they just know how to deal with people. And let me not even get started on their longevity of games. Like there's a lot of games currently that they came out with that has longevity to them. Mario Kart, Pokemon, Splatoon. Those are just a couple of titles on the Switch that you can play pretty much forever, you know? And I think that's a strong, those are the strong components that kind of orchestrated to Nintendo Switch's success and Nintendo as a brand.
Yeah, so to answer your question, um, nin does Nintendo hardware need those state of the art features and 8K graphics and high fidelity this and and haptic feedback and all this? No, because those are all gimmicks. Like
Mhm.
Nintendo's at its core, it has a strong foundation of history, of loyalty, and of innovation. Esoteric just mentioned a few things that Nintendo pioneered, right? Like I'm not a Mario fan, but I've played Mario games, obviously, but I'm not a fan. Like if you ask me top 5 platformers of all time, Mario wouldn't make the list probably. And that's just a bias, right?
Mhm.
Um, but I can respect that the Super Mario 64 pioneered 3D platforming. If that game didn't exist, like other developers wouldn't know where to shit or wind their watch as far as like 3D platforming design is concerned because they don't have a template. Nintendo created that template, right? Through Mario 64, the amazing team behind that game. Um, as well as 2D platforming. They did it twice, you know. Motion controls. Nintendo, right? As shitty as the Wii's motion controls are, and as much as I hate motion controls in general, it was
Mhm.
fun. And it worked for the most part. And people still use it today, right? So, I mean, you got to give the devil their due, and they're frustrating to deal with as a fan. Sometimes it's like guys, the answer's right there. Like, just do this, right? When it comes to like cloud saves and downloads in the past, like with the
I
3DS and
can
the Wii U, there's a lot of things that they fucked up on.
I
But
can definitely agree with that. Like I feel like there's just some things that regardless of whether you want to be a conventional or a conservative company or not, it just makes sense for your current generation to supply or to provide for your current generation. Like
yeah,
I definitely agree with that. Like I should be able to. Well, I think they do have it now in a sense where you can like save your game, save your save
yeah,
file on a server.
they've got that figured out. But there's like little things like
Mhm.
why are we now getting an Ethernet port on the Switch with the OLED model? Like that should have been implemented a long time ago.
I
And why do we
think
not have a
You know,
party chat room on the console?
I
Like that.
well, with that one, I think we can speculate as to why. They don't want a certain demographic to interact with another demographic. They wanted to keep it kid friendly, so it's best to just not have that feature. And the people who do need that feature, who want that feature, will find another way, which we
We
have.
have,
So,
right?
and
well,
we still bought the Switch, right?
true.
True.
Well,
So they were
well,
right.
in regards to that, I would say that they could have still implemented it because Nintendo relies heavily on parenting. Like they expect parents to know how to utilize the system with the parental controls. So they could have set something up that would prohibit, little kids from being able to access the communication support that they would have had. Um, but in regards to uh, Nintendo lacking in certain quality of life hardware, I think it's mainly just for the costs. They do it to cut down costs.
Yeah.
To have a, an interface where people would be able to have usernames as opposed to numbers. That takes server space. To have essentially communication and an Ethernet port. That's a hardware that would be embedded on the motherboard of the Nintendo Switch. So I think they cut costs where they can so that it can be so that the cost of the system can be in a decent margin for people to buy, which is one of the
I get that.
benefactors for its success in purchases. The timing, the amount it takes for a system to be created, being in a pandemic, all these things kind of factor in. Because, you know, not trying to get into the pandemic, perspective of things as much, but a lot of people were on unemployment making more than their actual jobs. So they had that excess funds to acquire leisurely items. And one of them were the Switch. Um, so yeah, I think what it is that they try to cut costs and they try to, empathize, I guess, with people who are buying their system.
And I get that, and I don't necessarily have an issue. Again, I found solutions to these problems, right?
Yeah.
I bought the stupid Ethernet gimmick that you attach, and you could do a hardwire connection. I bought that. I use Discord. I have a computer. I have a headset. I have the solutions to these minor issues, right? Which hurts my pockets at the end of the day, but whatever. If this is the kind of service that I want, then these are the steps that I need to take in order to get that service and that experience. Um, but to go off of your point where uh them having like the parenting thing, right? Like I think it's that, but also they just want to hit a wide audience, right? They want to make sure they can reach as many people as possible. And I think they understand that children, the little kids are a very lucrative market,
Yeah.
right? And it's I mean, it's true. Like we're all in our 30s at this point, and we've all played Nintendo, right? And our children will play Nintendo, and our children's children will play Nintendo, and it's just like this cycle. Same thing with like Pokemon, for example. Pokemon, they don't make product for us anymore. They make products for 10-year-olds and 12-year-olds, right? But we have such an attachment to that product, to that branding, that we continue to supply and buy into that product, whether it be Pokemon cards, Pokemon games, Pokemon toys, whatever, right? Nintendo hardware, Nintendo games, whatever. Everybody knows Mario. I've met
Which
working at a game store, I've met people in their 80s who knew who Mario was, as well as little kids who are 6 years old. They know exactly who Mario is. He covers every demographic, and that's why they're as successful as they are. Not to mention the quality of their games. It boils down to that. Wolf mentioned that before when he was talking about Metroid and Super Mario, right? Those
Yeah.
games are quality games. Those games are made with passion and with care, not just, oh, let's take advantage of you know the teenage market or whatever, and let's just make sure there's enough titties in this game and cutting edge storylines. No, because that doesn't
those
reach a
don't get
wide
remembered,
demographic.
right?
It's
They don't get remembered. They don't.
no, they don't.
Yeah. And
Um, like what Blanka Khan said earlier, where he's met someone in their 80s. I remember reading an article a few years ago, which always stood out to me, of an older lady. I think she was in her 70s or her 80s. I try to find that article again, but she was a hardcore Animal Crossing player. She had a DS,
I know exactly what you're
and
talking about.
right, and she played Animal Crossing, which is a Nintendo exclusive title. Obviously it's Nintendo made. Um, I have yet to see an article of someone who has, genuinely or consistently played God of War in their 80s or 90s, much less someone who is my age and is like, yeah, maybe I could find a gamer who's my age and say, like, I played God of War. Yeah, it was a really cool game. Really? So what's the first boss? Uh, uh, that snake thing that was in the water. Like, I don't even know if you're playing the right God of War that I played.
the
But
Hydra.
like that, right? It's like, but it goes back to that. Is like, there's a sense of, it puts you in a situation where you are going to remember this. Whether you're going to remember it either because it was extremely easy for you, or maybe the colors that stood out to you, or just the way the boss was, or the overall game. But that's exactly what quality games should be. It's like watching a good movie. You can watch a movie that says, okay, that's an all right movie. One example is like Repo Man. I think we all went to see Repo Man. Um, I know what the movie is about, but can I go back and tell you every scene for detail? No, I can't. But then there is movies like, say, Inception, which I recently just watched, and I think it was a phenomenal movie.
You now watched Inception?
I'm shocked.
Yeah, man. I'm not a movie person, but
Wow.
yeah, but it's a phenomenal movie, and I don't
Yeah.
think I'll ever forget that movie because of just it's just the way the whole movie was set up from beginning to end. It's just crazy.
Well,
You know,
we're gonna test you in 5 years.
um, but then there's there was another point that I wanted to make according to something else, but I forgot. I should have written it down, to be honest. But yeah, that's what I'm saying is like you got old people playing Animal Crossing, man. I mean, yeah, it was a few years ago that this article came out, but it happened, So I think that's definitely my go-to as to why I can justify Nintendo lasting or outselling any other console. And I think the Switch can continue to strive. But now it goes to the sense of where it's like, okay, let's look at the new Switch that's coming out, the revamp or the updated version of it. I don't want to bash Nintendo, but in the end of the day, there's no real change to the console other than an Ethernet port or a slightly bigger screen.
Pre-order still sold out though.
Exactly. Right? So Nintendo understands that they can put the same thing on the market and it will still sell because it's essentially the same console.
Yeah, they're like the Apple of gaming. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
that's pretty much what they are. But what I'll do, that Apple doesn't really do, that I think Nintendo does really well, is that they know. Well, Apple does it too. I'll give them that, to be honest. They definitely do it too. But what Nintendo does really well is that they have a cadence about them that when it comes to their games, they know how to build games for people who want to play them long term and invest more time into them. And they know how to take that same game and make it short enough for people that's like, oh, well, I did this, I'm done. Pokemon is a perfect example of that. It has people who just want to complete the story. It has people who just want to collect Pokemon, or they have the shiny hunters, and then they have people who are like hardcore gamers. That's like, well, I want to battle, I want to compete, I want to build the perfect breed of Pokemon. Like they do that
That
in most of their games, and
that's me 100%.
you know exactly. And Nintendo knows that. They know how to build games for people who want to invest time, and within that same game who just want to pick up and play. Like I don't think there's a Nintendo game where you really, unless you want to, have to invest time in these new games in this day and age. You really have to like figure out a lot of shit within them just to play the game.
That's a
Well,
good
yeah.
point you made because, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Wolf, but I just want to quick, before I forget this. I recently sat and watched a speed runner play Pokemon Sapphire. And he beat it in 2 hours. He never used the Pokemon Center. Like these guys developed a strategy to beat the game in 2 hours, which is already crazy, and to count the steps and to learn like, oh, you only get an encounter in the grass after you get a 4 tile immunity of encounters while in the grass. So they like every conceivable step, every attack, everything,
That's
every
mind-boggling.
item. That shit is crazy. I'll share the video with you in our chat thread later. But I was watching this and I was like, my jaw dropped. This is a game that came out almost 20 years ago. Me and Wolf both bought it when it first came out,
Same.
and we played it for hundreds of hours. We played it a lot. And it's one of my personal favorite Pokemon games. You mentioned replayability, the fact that you can find new ways to play the game, and that's a great example. Like you didn't even mention Nuzlocke challenges.
Nope.
These games are so good and so well made that people find out of the box, new ways to play these games to have an excuse to play the game again. That's
Hmm.
crazy. There are some games out there that I've never even I bought and never even booted up. Or I played for an hour and was like, okay, and I never touched again. And but there are games, Pokemon is one of them, where I can go back and I can play and enjoy it, even though I beat it twice already, 3 times, 5 times, whatever. Doesn't matter. The game is great.
Yeah.
I can play it over and over again.
And
So
let me not.
Wolf, I think Wolf had a
Oh,
point,
I'm
but
sorry. Go ahead, Wolf.
go ahead.
To be honest, I forgot my point, but
Damn it.
Damn, I'm
Sorry.
sorry.
it's
Sorry.
all right. No, 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 it's cool. But yeah, I definitely agree with that. I'm definitely the type who will play a Pokemon game and either I'm shiny hunting to get all my, as much shiny Pokemons as I can, or I'm training, guys to be competitive battlers, whether it's play, double play. Um, because in the end of the day, that's just where I find my fun in the video game itself. So I play the story because I kind of have to play the story to unlock certain things for me to do what I really want in the game. Um, but yeah, I do not play Pokemon for the story at all. But yet at the same time, it's for me, I always say Pokemon is life, especially if you're the kind of gamer that I am. It's life. I'm the grinding type. So I could never do a Pokemon game in 2 hours. So kudos to that guy who did,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's going to bother me that I am not over leveling my guys to play the game. It's just gonna irk my nerve, and then I'm gonna spend another hour of my life, just making sure that my guys are fully evolved by the second batch. That's just the way I play.
And and
But that's again a testament to the game. Like you can play it
Yeah.
different ways and have fun either way. But go ahead, Esther.
no, I was gonna say, now that Wolf mentioned it, the funny thing is, well, I think it was Yukong that mentioned it about the whole speed challenges. This, I'm guessing this Pokemon game he did legit. No cheats, no walking through walls, nothing like
No,
that. Like,
I watched the whole thing. He did it live with an audience behind him.
yeah,
There
that's
was no
just
cheating to be had. Somebody would have caught it.
no,
He
but
tackled it like chess masters, like grandmaster chess players tackle chess. It's like, I'm gonna do this. These are your two options. If you do this, I'm gonna do this. If you do that, I'm gonna do that. And I was just like, what the fuck? This is with Pokeball. Like, this is insanity. I was mind blown. Like, oh, I picked May instead of Brandon because in Rival Fight 2, this is the lineup of Pokemon, and he sends out this first, so this is a better matchup for this. So like he made this decision at the start of this, like, oh, are you a boy or a girl? He made that decision for something that's gonna happen like well, in his gameplay, 20 minutes, but for normal people, like maybe 2 hours in or 3 hours in, it's like that's great. Like, wow, that's impressive, you know?
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely.
And I was just gonna say, like, that's just a testament to Nintendo's ability to just make such great games. Like, the dude did a speed run without even having to cheat in the game. Like, I've seen a lot of speedrunners who play a particular game and they have to like jump through a wall, or they have to like, you
But
know,
there are speedrunners who specify like cheats or no cheats. They're
yeah,
they're
yeah.
different, like, you know.
But I mean, for him to take the time to like understand each square, because if I'm not mistaken, how the game is developed is it's based off a grid, so you're
Hmm.
Mhm.
walking step by step.
Yeah,
For
yeah.
him to figure that out is just amazing. And the other point I was trying to make is that Nintendo's like aesthetic, like there are games now that are aesthetically pleasing, and by that I mean in terms of like the renders are well done, the environment looks great, but nothing to me that doesn't compare to the games that I've seen in the past. Like, I think Metroid Fusion was a well fleshed out game. I really love the aesthetic of Golden Sun. Like, those are games I can definitely go back and play again. Like, I've played it, Golden Sun 1 and 2. Not so much. What was it called? Dark Moon. I only played that like once. Is whatever. Um, Nintendo can't win them all. But I played those games like 3 times, and like I was so impressed with the shading, the pixel art, like it's one of those games that will stay fresh forever, in my opinion. You know, like I can just boot it up on any game that it can play on, and it'll look great. It'll look amazing to me. Um, one of Kong's favorite games, Donkey Kong Country, like that game looks amazing for its time.
Hmm. Still holds up, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
it still holds up. And then they were like, "Oh, I'll give you one better, Returns."
The music for Donkey Kong Country
Oh
3 to
yes,
me
yes. Oh my
is the
God, the music,
music.
the
I
music.
still remember the music. My brother is definitely a fan of video game music, and I think Donkey Kong Country is one of his favorites, hands down. Um,
Me too.
he
Definitely
it's
top.
amazing, man.
Definitely top in my opinion. I would say not in any order, but I would say the Donkey Kong games, the Pokemon games, um, the theme battles were like they're all memorable in my opinion. Um, can't think of a third now.
I'll save it. That could be a topic for the future, and
True,
we can like
true.
get into it,
Yeah,
Mm.
get into heavier detail. But I think we can all agree that it takes good software for a piece of hardware to hit the top of the list. If we look at this list, again, PS2 at the top, right? There's a lot of reasons why the PS2 is at the top. I mean, keep in mind, like at the time that this thing came out, DVD players were super expensive, so the PS2 was the perfect alternative. So a
yeah,
lot of people bought the PS2 to play DVDs.
Mm.
So it fit that niche, and I think Nintendo. I mean, I mean, a lot of people, myself included, I didn't think Nintendo would last in the handheld market because of mobile gaming, and they're thriving, even with mobile gaming being taking a huge chunk of the gaming population. It doesn't matter. Like Nintendo is so their IPs and their way of doing business and their way of developing games is so iconic and just high quality that it doesn't matter. It's like if you want
Yeah.
true gaming, this is where you're gonna
I mean,
get it.
you could say that Nintendo infiltrated the mobile game market instead of the mobile game market infiltrating the Nintendo's console market.
You could say that.
Because look at Pokemon Go. I mean, it's the game is still running now, but even when Pokemon Go was out, the burst of popularity, they could have. I mean, think
Thing
about it.
took over the fucking world for like a month.
yeah,
Ex-
yeah,
exactly. It could have been a different IP with the same concept. You spin a ball, you catch the monster, you raise the monster to then do it again and again and again and again and again. It could have
They've
been a
done it with other franchises. Look at the Mario Kart game. Look
yeah.
at Mario Run.
Doctor
Look at
Mario.
Mhm.
Dr. Mario. Look at the Fire
Yeah.
Emblem Gotcha game. Like
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like all their mobile games are doing well. Even Pokemon Masters, which is one of their most current ones, that
forgot
I
about
thought
that
was
one.
gonna be right, which I thought was get shut down because I didn't like it at all. But it it's making them money. Like it's really making them money. It's very popular. It's getting good reviews. People love it. You know, it could have been a gotcha game or a mobile game with a different name, different looking characters, but the exact same gameplay, and I still don't think it would be booming or it would be as successful as Nintendo's line. Um, so I would say that in this specific scenario, Nintendo is the one that's infiltrating the mobile market.
I
A
couldn't I
Pokemon
couldn't
Unite.
I couldn't disagree
Yeah,
with that
Pokemon
statement.
Unite is about to come out with two exclusive Pokemon for now, or two, it's going to drop with two more Pokemon than what Pokemon Unite has now.
Mhm.
And I can promise you that I intend to download it, even though I'm playing it on the Switch. And I still intend to download it on the mobile because I could be at work and I can get a 10-minute game in. It may frustrate me because, people, but regardless, I can get a game in during my lunch break while I'm eating. I'm playing Pokemon Unite,
and
you know?
and that's the thing. Like Nintendo gives you innovation when it matters. Like any when it comes to experience with in gaming, not like social gaming when you're like wanting to speak to people or whatever and things like that. Um, and like the whole internet aspect of it. Um, Aside from that, Nintendo gives you innovative gaming. I think their thought process is, how can I make the audience feel like they're actually in the game? You know,
All right.
how can I make it convenient for?
And I don't, and not to, I don't mean to cut you off, but I don't want to take anything away from the PlayStation,
No, no,
because
absolutely not.
Sony and the PlayStation are dominating this list of
Mm-hmm.
console, and it's for very similar reasons. If you look at each PlayStation, they have very good quality games, exclusive titles, especially the PS2. PS2 is king, right?
Yeah,
There's so
Mm-hmm.
many great games on there. God of War, you mentioned. I'm not a particular
Mm-hmm.
fan, but I respect it. Kingdom Hearts. Esoteric is a huge Kingdom Hearts fan. I'm not a fan, but I can respect what that game has done, right? Devil May
Mm-hmm.
Cry. Um, there's a ton of games on PS2, right? PS1, Resident Evil,
yeah,
Silent Hill, Crash Bandicoot, right? Tomb Raider, even though I don't like Tomb Raider, but whatever, people love Tomb Raider. So I think that's a testament to both Nintendo and Sony, because we went a while praising Nintendo pretty hard, but I want to make sure that people understand that PlayStation deserves all the praise that they get. And Xbox only has one slot in this top 10, and they're
I
barely
think
holding
uh,
on. So go ahead.
I think each company brought one or two titles that really stands out to me um across the consoles. Like I wasn't a fan of the Halo series per se, but I definitely playing Halo, I can definitely understand why someone would like to play, why people really love the game or treasured it the way it was, just from the multiplayer aspect to even the story part of it, really.
Mhm.
Um, so I can see that. And then as far as Sony goes, for a Sony exclusive, Shadow of Colossus will always have a
Another
specific,
great one. Yep.
right, a specific place in my heart as a game. Like I remember every Shadow Colossus boss. I remember my oh shit moments. That mind blowing where you see the Colossus eye and then you get that pan out of what kind of size you're really dealing with. And then
Flying
you know,
Colossus.
right, they mind fuck you by giving you one that's your size, but yet it's mobility, it's intelligence is just throwing you off because before you even get to that Colossus, you're fighting giants. And now you're fighting one that's just it's bigger than your character, but it's not nowhere near as big as the previous Colossi.
Mhm.
So it's just like that game to me, yes, it has archaic controls if you were to try to play today.
yeah.
But
I
at that
definitely tried.
time, it's one of those games where it's like I remember every moment in that video game like I would remember every moment in Metroid Prime. So it every game, every console, all three companies have brought a game to me. I've played a game where I can honestly remember and say, yeah, this shit rocked. You know, um, so I give it to them. And I've owned the PlayStation 2, the PlayStation 3, the PlayStation 4. I will not be owning the PlayStation 5, and that's for my own specific personal reasons. Um, I think it's about time that I just jump over on getting a computer myself, like, what everybody else in my circle is doing. But that again, that's just for specific reasons, not because I don't think that Sony can provide quality video games for me. So the reason why we spent this time talking about Nintendo is really because the topic is Nintendo is beating these hardcore centric video game developers with with an elf with a sword and shield trying to save a princess. Like it's just crazy. It's really crazy.
Fundamentals.
Um, right, exactly. Fundamentals is very important. And so I grew up on Nintendo, so Nintendo does have a special place in my heart. So I'm happy to see that because of these sales, in the end of the day, every video game company is a business. They care about the pennies in their pockets. But because Nintendo is making those pennies, I can be privileged to play the games that they are constantly putting out for us. So I am happy that even going back to the past of where they're competing against PS3 and 360, that they beat them. But I'm also happy or content that even though the PlayStation 5 is outselling them momentarily, that they're not lacking or falling behind in the overall competition, because they're not selling by much. It's about 3 million copies. So when you look at the grand scheme of things, it's not a lot, but millions is a large number regardless. But I think they'll be fine. I really do think they'll be fine. I just hope Nintendo doesn't fall into that state where they feel, much like how Apple is, they feel they can
They can't rest on their laurels.
Right.
They have to stay innovative. They have to push the envelope, because
Right, exactly.
they can easily lose out. So
Exactly. That's what I don't want them to say, okay, well, people are going to buy because it's a Zelda game. So let's just put, something and slap Zelda on its title, and, because of its title, it'll sell. No, I want that quality Zelda game. When Twilight Princess was supposed to come out, they pushed it back a whole year. And what they told us to satisfy us is they felt that if they were to release the game the time they were supposed to, we as the gamers would not get that quality experience that they would like us to get. And you know
Metroid Prime
what?
4 is another
Metroid
example.
Prime
A
4 is
current example.
the most current example. And you know what? Like, maybe they brought out that statement that, maybe they was having other issues. But the fact that I can only go with what they told us. So that is a statement that I have to follow up with. That's what I have to believe.
And they
Right?
delivered.
And they delivered. But I appreciate that. I appreciate that they're willing to take that backlash of gamers who don't want to wait, who wanted their Zelda when the month it was supposed to come out and didn't get it. But because they wanted to make sure that, listen, this is a quality video game that you will remember. I appreciate that. I really, in all honesty, do appreciate that. Now let's hold them accountable. Pokemon Sword and Shield, that's a huge disappointment. Um, at the end of the day, I felt like the developers, which is Game Freak, did not do or did not hold standard of what we expected a Pokemon game to be. I felt they were comfortable, which is what I'm afraid of. They became comfortable with the IP and pretty much slapped the same shit that we played years ago on this new game and said, here, be happy. Like, I felt I did feel cheated as a consumer playing Pokemon Sword and Shield, because it did not uphold to what I expected Pokemon to be at this point. Now, I don't think Game Freak is doing Pokemon Arceus. I don't think they're doing that. I think it's a different company.
I think
I
that's
have to
developed
look into that.
in-house. No, I think it's Game Freak.
It's Game Freak doing Arceus?
I believe so. They probably collabing
I
with
could be
another
wrong,
company.
but I'm pretty sure it's Game Freak.
Okay.
So, we'll
Well,
see
if
what
it
that
is
game
Game
looks like,
Freak,
and I think it
right.
looks great. So
Right. So far from what I've seen, it's a redemption. It's a huge redemption. But, I'm still going to hold them accountable. I'm going to hold Nintendo as so Game Freak is the developer, Nintendo is the publisher, correct?
It's Game Freak.
So
Game Freak making Arceus.
Game Freak is making Arceus.
Yeah.
So I'm still going to hold it accountable. Like Sword and Shield it's pretty crappy. I did not enjoy the gameplay. I do not enjoy the Dynamax thing. I do not enjoy that they took out a lot of what, like the Mega Evolution, which could have fixed so many Pokemon without actually changing the Pokemon to begin with. Instead, you give me giant Pikachu. Like, what the flying fuck? So I do still hold them accountable. I am not that excited for the new Metroid game because I expected more, being since Metroid has been left out the scene for so long. But at the same time, I'm definitely keeping an open mind about it. I'm staying positive. I'm gonna buy the game regardless because it's one of my favorite franchises, and I'll make that true judgment once I play it.
Yeah.
So I'm not against holding a company accountable for the BS they put out. I'm also not going to say that Sony and Microsoft doesn't deliver quality games. They definitely do. Definitely they do. It's just, to me, their quality games is more of a diamond in the rough than necessarily consistent. That's just my personal opinion, though.
No, I get what you're saying. And to Kong's point about recognition, it's unfortunate that Sega is not in the running. I believe that they were, in terms of innovation, they were at the time they were kind of going toe to toe with Nintendo, but unfortunately, they're no longer developing systems and things of that nature. Like the VMU memory card was a phenomenal implementation. Like to be able to pull out your memory card and have interactive stuff, it was like a gigapet mixed with a data holder. I that was pretty amazing. So it's just really unfortunate that they've been reduced to make new game, and then here's another Sonic game that sucks. Then make new game to fund another Sonic game that sucks. It's sad, but I would like to give them recognition because they were doing well for their time as well.
For sure. I'm a Sega kid at heart, but it didn't work out for them. They made too many mistakes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they made too many Sonic.
Sure. I think it's a little more than that. It's not all on the Sonic team. They make a lot of great games that make them a lot of money, like the Yakuza games, which are games I care for, but they make the money,
Yeah. And Shenmue too. Don't forget about Shenmue.
You see the Virtual Fighter.
Yeah.
There's one that was just in my head just now. No, it's not Sonic.
Was it Jet Set Radio or?
I mean, that's another one. But yeah, they've done a lot of innovation. Dreamcast was one of the first systems to go online, way before Xbox and PlayStation and Nintendo. They innovated. They did a lot of cool things, and unfortunately, history only remembers the winners, and Sega wasn't able to sustain their position. So,
fun fact, they are the ones that are responsible for, if I'm not mistaken, the 6 button scheme that the arcades have. Also, and correct me if I'm wrong, viewers. Definitely check me in on any information that I may be misinformed about. But they implemented the analog stick with Nights into Dreams for Sega Saturn. So that was well before Nintendo 64 or I believe PlayStation as well. So yeah.
Well, PlayStation didn't start with analog sticks. They added that, I think, 2 years into.
You're right. That's yeah.
So, again, another point in Sega.
Yep. You said it right. You said it right. You said it right.
You're just a hater, but that's okay.
I'm not hating, but is it true? Like, come on, my kid loves Sonic, but that's all he knows. Why? Why is that all he knows? It's because as Sega, whether they're developers or publishers or whatever, they only provide Sonic.
Well,
that's it.
Well,
like they have other franchises, of course. I'm not saying they don't have other franchises. They do, but to be honest, it's literally every year. It's literally a Sonic game. Literally. It's like they
use their other projects to fund a new Sonic game.
Another Sonic. Yeah. But the other projects that they're funding could be good projects. You understand what I'm saying? Like, I believe we're on. So Sega does the Yakuza, you said? They do Yakuza? And what? We're at, Yakuza 4? Is it the most?
Yakuza 7.
7. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, okay. They have
Yeah.
That game
So
does very well for them.
we're on Yakuza 7, but like I didn't even know that. You understand what I'm saying? But I do know that there's a new Sonic game which I have no intention of playing coming out. And I don't know, maybe it is my bias because so when I see Sonic, I'm looking to see okay, what kind of stupid shit Sega doing now with Sonic. You know, like I'm just it's just the way I look at it. It's just like I
Yeah,
feel like
that's fine. I mean, you
Yeah.
could do that, but
right,
they have more to offer than Sonic.
of course they do. But are
All I'm
they
saying.
offering more than Sonic? That's what like of course they do, but are they doing it? You know, that's my thing. My thing is like goddamn give the blue rat a rest. I know he's your mascot, I know he's your face, I know you got to put one out there for the kiddies, I guess, but holy shit, like
They're doing a remaster for Super Monkey Ball. That's another Sonic game.
and
That looks
I
pretty good.
actually like Super Monkey Ball, to be
You
honest.
sure? Because it's developed by Sonic, by Sega.
I
So,
by I'm not
you
against
sure?
the like I like Virtua Fighter.
You sure?
Virtua Fighter is
Did
Sega,
you
right? That is
misspeak?
Sega,
Did
right?
you mean to say Tekken?
I mean, Tekken is the better game.
Oh man,
Anyways, we're not touching that topic. But
Anyway,
what I'm saying is, I did download Virtua Fighter.
I
I do
never
have
played it.
characters that I like. Well, I did boot it up. Me and my little one play it from time to time. Me and none of you guys have ever played it. Not one time have you guys said in the chat, you know, I'm about to jump on Virtua Fighter. Who's with me? Hell, we've played Dragon Ball Z Fighters. We've played freaking Tekken 7. We've played Soul Calibur. We like all the current games we're playing, or we have played and given it. We even Power Rangers. We've given a moment to in our little circle. Yet Virtua Fighter was free for a whole friggin' month, and not one person said, "Hey, I'm booting up Virtua Fighter. Let's play Virtua Fighter." No, instead, one dude in our circle was like, "Yeah, new Sonic game. Let's go."
In my in my defense, when I was going all gung ho about Virtual Fighter, I was getting clowned within the group while I'm playing that low tier Tekken. So,
That sounds like something Blanka Kong would say.
so I, because
heavyweights mean nothing to me.
I've played Virtual Fighter since Sega Saturn. So, I like it despite the stiff controls and the lack of character between the roster. I still like it. It's to me, it's a fun game. You know,
And
I will never say that it's better than Tekken though, but
I want to point out because I feel like picking on Blanka Kong right now.
Go for it.
He likes El Blaze for all the wrong reasons. First and foremost,
heavyweights
which
mean
hilarious.
nothing to me.
so I'm gonna put that out there. Okay, he doesn't like El Blaze because Virtua Fighter is a good fighting game. He likes El Blaze for all the wrong reasons. So I'm putting it out there that it's not the games that Sega is necessarily making that keeps us attached. It's probably the characters or what they presented to us as a childhood. But
Stop laughing, man.
But no, what I'm El Blaze didn't come out till like a few years ago. So I'm like,
I rest my case.
I'll let the viewers decide what they should believe.
characters means nothing to him.
I
So
rest
anyway,
my case.
We've gone over time.
Yeah.
I have
Sorry.
no other. No, it's okay. It's fine. I've exhausted all my points as far as like the Nintendo Switch and its console sales. I think Nintendo will continue to push, and I think the Switch will make it to the top 3 at the very least. They will crack 100 million for sure, I think. And I think they can exceed the 155 million mark if they continue to innovate and make the Switch a must-have console. So that's it. That's my point. I don't know if you guys have any closing thoughts, but
I agree. I definitely agree. As long as they don't lose their, standards as a game developer and company, I feel like they'll continue to strive. They may not be number one in terms of sales in the long run, may not be or will be, who knows? But regardless of it, they'll make games that I'll continue to remember. So I have positive hope for Nintendo Switch's future.
Yeah, I agree as well. I think one of the strong things that Nintendo does well is that if a certain game does flop, um, they do tend to revert back to its original roots. They've done it for the second Mario game. That was a terrible game. They've done it for The Adventures of Link. Great theme song, terrible game. Like Nintendo has always had a trend where they try to push the envelope and try to think outside the box. And if it wasn't the wave or if viewers weren't too receptive about it, they will revert back to what the fans initially wanted. So with that being said, I do think that they do listen to us in terms of video games and innovation from that regard. Highly doubt they'll do anything about pushing the hardware factor. But at the end of the day, it's all about the games. And if they continue their business practice, I will continue to support them.
All right. So with that being said, where can they find us, Esoteric?
All right, guys. So, and gals, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Logical Gamers TV. Look for the light bulb logo. Best one ever. Letting y'all know. Also, I stream on Twitch Monday, Wednesdays, Friday from 9 p.m. to 1 a.m. That's Eastern Standard Time. Same thing, Logical Gamers TV. Check us out. Looking forward to see you guys there.
All right. So thank you guys for another episode in the chamber. Appreciate you listening. Comment if you have any other points or corrections to make. And yeah, we'll see you in the next one.
Yep.
Have a good night.
Remember, guys, if it ain't gaming, it ain't logical. Peace.